Agile teams, communication and collaboration are not accessories. They are the engine. Agile methods, especially when adopted as a culture, rely on shared understanding, frequent interactions, and synchronized actions. But how do we make sure that communication is effective? How can we ensure that collaboration doesn't become confusion? There's one tool that stands out among all others: feedback. Feedback, when used intentionally and consistently, becomes one of the most powerful tools to enhance communication in an agile team. It brings clarity where there is ambiguity, alignment where there is drift, and improvement where there is inertia. But it's important to stress that feedback is not just saying what we think. That's not what we mean. In organizational behaviors, and therefore also in agile culture, feedback is a structured way to foster continuous improvement and reinforce collaboration. And it is a practice we need to learn. Let's start from what feedback really is and what it is not. First, feedback is not about personal opinions or vague impressions. It's not about saying I like, I don't like. In a professional agile setting, feedback must be based on observed behaviors, on facts. It's not about the person, it's about the action, the behavior. Let's make a simple example. Imagine a teammate was late in sharing updates during the sprint. A vague or emotional feedback might sound like you're always late and it's frustrating. That's not helpful. It creates defensiveness. Instead, a behavior-based feedback could be: in the last sprint, you shared your task progress 2 days after the agreed stand-up. That created confusion when we tried to integrate your part. Can we find a way to avoid this next time? Why haven't you sent a message? It would have helped managing the meeting differently. This version is based on a concrete event. It describes the impact and, most importantly, it opens the door to improvement. This is what feedback in an agile team should look like. We usually distinguish between two types of feedback: supportive and constructive. Supportive feedback highlights what is working well. It reinforces good behaviors and motivates people to continue. For example, I noticed that you have started preparing your backlog refinement notes ahead of time. That made our last session much more efficient. Thanks for that. It really helped the team. This type of feedback builds confidence, strengthens collaboration, and celebrates alignment with the team values and practices. The two key steps of a good supportive feedback are: describe the behavior and the effects of the behavior. Constructive feedback, instead, is aimed at improvement. It points out behaviors that could be changed or adjusted. But even here, the tone matters. Constructive feedback is not criticism. It is an invitation to reflect and adapt. It is the beginning of a conversation. The goal is not to blame, it is to improve. An example: yesterday, you arrived 50 minutes late at the meeting with a customer. He got nervous because we started 30 minutes late waiting for you, and when you finally arrived, we had to start over. Next time, you may let me know you're late. So we start and you simply enter in the conversation when you arrive, so that do not waste customer time and jeopardize the relationship. The key steps here are: describe the behavior, effects of the behavior, positive alternative behavior, and why it is better. Both types of feedback have a place in the agile culture. One reinforces, the other adjusts. Together, they form a cycle of continuous improvement that agile is built on. However, even when we understand what good feedback looks like, giving and receiving feedback is not always easy. That's why feedback needs a culture. In most teams, especially those transitioning from traditional models, feedback doesn't come naturally. People are afraid of offending the others, or being judged, or they're simply not used to thinking about behaviors objectively. But Agile demands it. Without feedback, we cannot inspect and adapt. And if we cannot adapt, we cannot improve. So how do we build a culture of feedback? We start by practicing. Like any skill, feedback improves with use. The more we do it, the more natural it becomes. We also learn by observing. If leaders and team members model good feedback practices, others will follow. Feedback can be part of retrospectives, of one-on-one sessions, or of daily stand-ups. It doesn't have to wait for a formal review. We also need to build safety. People must feel safe to share what they see and to hear what others share. That means removing the blame. It means separating the behavior from the person. And it means being curious, not judgmental. Let's be honest, receiving feedback can be hard, even when it is well intended. But if we treat feedbacks as a gift, as a mirror that helps us see ourselves more clearly, we can start to appreciate it. Not every feedback will be perfectly delivered, but the intent behind it, learning and improving, should always be assumed. One very effective way to support feedback in agile teams is to agree on some simple rules. Base your feedback on facts, not assumptions. Always describe a behavior, not the person. Be timely. Don't wait weeks. The sooner the feedback is given after the behavior, the more useful it is. But take care also of the next point. Wait emotion to calm down. Feedback should be timely, but do not give it when you are still upset or disappointed by a situation. Explain the impact. Feedback is more effective when it shows how the behavior affected the team or the outcome. Ask permission. A simple, "Can I give you a feedback?" creates space and respect. Let's take one other example. Imagine a team member dominates every retrospective discussion. A weak feedback would be, "You talk too much." But using the rules, a stronger feedback might be, "In the last 2 retrospectives, you spoke for over half of the time." That left less space for others to share. Would you be open to trying a round robin next time, so everyone has equal voice? Clear, respectful, and solution-oriented. Now, let's connect feedback to one of the Agile's core goals, alignment. We know that autonomy in agile teams is only effective when there is alignment. People can only move fast and independently if they are heading in the same direction. And feedback is the key tool to maintain that alignment. When feedback is frequent, transparent, and normalized, teams can constantly correct their trajectories. They spot misunderstandings before they grow. They reinforce shared values. They highlight when someone's actions are drifting from the goal or when someone's initiative is especially helpful. Feedback in this sense becomes not just a communication tool, but a calibration mechanism. It helps the team stay coordinated without needing excessive rules or control. And that's the essence of Agile as a culture. Individuals and teams are free to act, but always moving together. To conclude, feedback is not a soft practice. It is a strategic behavioral tool. In an agile environment, it is essential to strengthen collaboration, foster trust, and build alignment. And the good news is it's learnable. The more we give, the better we get. The more we receive, the more we grow. And the more we practice, the more feedback becomes not a moment of tension, but a normal, valuable part of team life. Feedback builds transparency. Transparency builds trust. And trust makes autonomy possible. That's why feedback is not just a practice, it's a foundation, one that every agile team needs to master.